Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here. In this video we're talking about Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 1, Wii U and more. Let's get started. Alright, we'll kick things off here talking about Nintendo Switch emulation on PC with Yuzu, and Yuzu just released their progress report. As always, this report is well written, filled with a ton of detail, and I recommend checking it out. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. We're just going over it at a high level. The first thing in this report is talking about Project YFC, and DMC acceleration reduces a ton of overhead by letting the GPU handle textured downloads, improving performance considerably with games that aren't CPU bottlenecked. Now, not every single game is going to benefit from these updates, but some are going to benefit significantly, and here's a couple of examples. Metroid Prime Remastered and Super Mario 3D All-Stars. This is on an RTX 3060 Ti, and the blue is the before. Both games are getting under 45 frames per second. After this update, both games are getting above 75 frames per second, which is a huge update. On top of that, thanks to even more tweaks, games like The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD and more will provide much smoother video playback. Thanks to even more changes, we've got even more improvements. Here's Pokemon Scarlet and Violet before, and well, here is after. Thanks to some awesome work from Epic Boy, Yuzu now has a synchronous ASTC texture decoding. Here is the GPU compute shader decoding on the left and asynchronous CPU decoding on the right. You can see which one is a little bit faster or a lot a bit faster. If you wanted to check out these settings on your own, you absolutely can. If you open up Yuzu, go into the settings menu, click on graphics, and then click on Advanced. You should see it right here under Decode ASTC. Thanks to some further updates, compilation times were improved. One game that benefited this is Taiko Rishiden VDX. I probably butchered that name. Let me know how to say it properly in the comments below. Moero Crystal H is now booting. On top of all of that, there are some input improvements so people can try to play Metroid Prime Remastered with a mouse and keyboard. For those of you focused on multiplayer, the LDN lobby window now has the option to hide empty rooms, which will clean up a lot of clutter. And if you're using Yuzu on Discord, game images should now populate correctly if you wanted to advertise that. On top of all of that, there's a whole bunch of bug fixes, and they also checked out the newest NVIDIA drivers, and apparently they're pretty good. So if you have an NVIDIA GPU, it might be worth updating to driver 531.18. And if you're on AMD, there's some tweaks here that you might find interesting. Now, I don't have an AMD GPU, so I can't show you this in action, but if you are on Windows, you might want to check out game mode and enabling it because you might get some additional performance from your AMD GPU. If you wanted to learn more about this, check out the progress report. As always, Yuzu is free, open source, and worth checking out if you're into Switch emulation on PC. Yuzu had an awesome month, and hats off to the development team for being great, and thanks to everything you do. Next up, we're talking about Atari 2600 emulation with Go for 2600, and Go for 2600 just got a brand new update. So version 0.21.0 just released, and we've got a bunch of bug fixes, some significant performance improvements, and also some other stuff like a new renderer pipeline, better scaling, and improved input latency. Go for 2600 is free, it's open source, and if you're interested in it, I'll drop a link to the GitHub in the description below. Feel free to check it out. Moving on, and we're talking about DREAMM. DREAMM stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or DOS Retro Emulation Arena for Maniac Mansion and other LucasArts SCUMM games. Depending on how you want to interpret that, that's basically what it stands for. And DREAMM got a brand new release. So version 2.0 of DREAMM just dropped, and I would argue that this is a big update for DREAMM. They added direct 3D emulation support with a multi-core software renderer. They've introduced support for a whole bunch of new games. They've expanded support for more demo and alternate versions of games. They've added support for Super VGA output and also basic joystick controls. And lastly here, they added in-game volume controls, plus many other quality of life UI improvements. If you are curious about DREAMM, I'll leave a link to it in the description below. You can read up all about it and also check out the game compatibility list. And speaking about compatibility, next up we're talking about PlayStation 1 emulation with Duckstation. And thanks to Heat here, they have an early implementation of ggpo into Duckstation, which means rollback netcode for all of you online multiplayer folks. It's worth mentioning that at this point in time, it's still in early stages of development. It's still got a ways to go here, but it is getting better. It's a fork of Duckstation called Duckstation NetPlay. It's free, it's open source, and It's unofficially called the Rumbling. It's currently Windows only, currently 2 players only, currently no spectating, and currently direct IP only. And I can't wait to see what comes of this. Honestly, I could potentially see this heading over to Fightcade and making an amazing experience, or just being able to be used on its own. Only time is going to tell here, but let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Next up, we're quickly talking about Wii U emulation with CEMU, and this is just a friendly heads up that CEMU version 2.0-29 experimental has just released. It may have some shader updates. The specific commit on this one is called Optimize Shader Decompiler Output. If you are curious about this one and feel like experimenting with CEMU and checking out an early release version, I'll drop a link to it in the description below. Feel free to check it out. Moving on, and we're talking about Linux, specifically Kali Linux, and Kali just had its 10th anniversary and just had its first release of 2023. Kali 2023.1. This version of Kali has a ton of changes in it, and if you wanted to read the changelog, I'll drop a link to it in the description below. At a high level here, there were some changes to Kali Purple, Python, a brand new theme, some desktop updates. They've updated to XFCE 4.18 and KDE Plasma 5.27. And you also get some brand new tools. If you're brand new to Linux, I probably wouldn't recommend Kali, but if you're experienced with Linux and have experience in pen testing and ethical hacking, or as now they're calling it offensive security and defensive security, you might want to check out the latest version of Kali. And speaking about hacking, or really modding, next up we're talking about Cyberpunk 2077 and, well, Nexus mods. If you've got Cyberpunk 2077 and you're a fan of modding, you might be glad to know that the Cyberpunk 2077 HD Reworked project has just released. If you wanted to see this project in action, I'll drop a link to a very helpful YouTube video in the description below. This project was done by the exact same person behind the Witcher 3 HD Reworked project. At a really high level here, the project aims to make your game look a heck of a lot better without impacting performance too much. And last up here, we're having a bit of fun with 3DS emulation and Mikage. Today Mikage tweeted, "You want ads, you get ads, but not here, not with Mikage." Mikage states, "For the record, we do think ads are unethical, but this is no attack on the Aether SX2 author. Developers still deserve to be treated respectfully. Although at least they didn't bundle malware by gross negligence just because they got walked around in some nice offices." And before you even ask, no, I don't have a release date yet for Mikage, but as soon as I know more, you'll know more. Anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.